ISUPK, getting started out 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. We're here in Buffalo, New York, taking ground in Buffalo, New York. Started off, we're just going to ask the people of Buffalo what their take is on the recent police brutality incidents of George Floyd being murdered, and now every day, every other day, a so-called Black, Latino, Native American Indian being murdered by the police. We're going to get their take on it, ask them why we should trust them, why should we trust the slave master, why should we trust Caucasians, whatever you want to call them, the devil, really, the Bible calls them, why should we trust them in this movement? Because if you go and march with us, can you protest with us, can you build a state with us, it's not going to happen. So Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, we can't build our own foundation, our own nation, okay, with the people that are murdering us, not trying to, that are murdering us, that have set up white supremacist police forces over us. Was stopping a cop from choking a brother to death several years ago. They fired her just before she was about to get her pension, man. And the only reason that they're bringing that story back up is because, again, there's a high-profile police murder that occurred in Minneapolis with the brother George Floyd, who suffered for close to 9 minutes, was choked, right, with a knee on his neck for 9 minutes. We can't get down with these people. These people should not be in our movements whatsoever. The scriptures say to separate, and so that we don't partake in the plagues that's coming to America. Buffalo just got hit with one, with the COVID. There's more plagues to come. So we're here to get the people of Buffalo, the residents of Buffalo, get their take on the recent police incidents that have occurred, police brutality, and why we should trust the slave master in our grief. Why should we trust him grieving with us? Why should we trust him marching and protesting with us? All right? Shalom.
ISUPK.
Here in Buffalo for several decades, and we all know of the different incidents that occur with police in Buffalo for centuries. Okay, why should different movements, Black and Hispanic movements, trust the people that have oppressed and enslaved them for so long? Why should we trust them in our movements, when we're trying to get judgment? Why should we trust, so-called Europeans when they've constantly lied to us, broken treaties, etc.?
You don't have to trust us.
Okay.
Just let us do it because we believe in justice that everybody is looking for and standing for and making all these signs and persisting. So we believe in it. You don't have to believe in us. It's okay.
Right. Well, I mean, we can go in textbooks and we can go and ask the Native American Indians how that went. What would you have to say about that? About what your ancestors and ancestors of Americans, people within this country, have done consistently throughout history. Looking at it from a historical standpoint, it doesn't look like a good idea. Would you agree?
What doesn't look like a good idea?
That the people that have been oppressed,
yes,
the oppressed people, the poor people, the impoverished people, joining with the people that have held them in captivity, whether it be economic, whether it be physical or mental. Do you think that's a good idea based on a historical perspective?
I do.
Why do you think it's a good idea?
Because it's a message to all other people that the fight for freedom is important, and it's important to us. It's important to everybody.
Okay.
But what's your alternative? What would you suggest?
Okay, well, what I would suggest is that so-called Black people, Latinos, and First Nations, and Native American Indians, take a different route. The route we've always taken is, when we're oppressed, go to the man that has enslaved us and essentially beg him, which is what these protests are.
Yeah.
Begging a man that's had his, the man had his knee on George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes.
Yeah.
He's begging and calling out for his mom. The only thing we know to do as slaves is to go to the man, the people that did that to us, and say, be nicer to us. But we're saying, if you don't know, we're part of the ISUPK, teach the truth about the Bible. What we have to say is that we don't need a nicer slave master. What we need is
Yes.
we need to separate from him.
Yes.
We need to separate from him. With the economic inequality in Buffalo is horrendous. Buffalo is the third poorest city behind Cleveland and Detroit in terms of poverty for so-called black people. I'm looking in this area. This area looks very well off. Like people here in relative economic security. Then I go to East Buffalo and different areas where minorities live in. It's a cesspool. And that's been going on for decades. I don't see it changing. The same people in power. So we should do, our stance is the Lord's stance is that is we should separate. The Lord called us holy. The word holy means separate. So just wanted to get feel of the people of Buffalo, what's your thought
another
on the
idea.
recent. Go ahead.
So this morning was the Poor People's Campaign,
Okay.
which is led by Reverend William Barber II.
Okay.
I think he calls North Carolina his home.
Mm-hmm.
And if you listened to it, it was started at 10 o'clock, I think. The Poor People's Campaign is to help poor people. Black, brown, Native American, white, without regard to a political party, but for the promotion of and demand for one equal, sustainable living wage to raise people out of poverty, because everyone is oppressed by poverty. And I think what they said was about 3 white men own half the wealth in this country.
Okay.
The other 99% of us own the rest of it.
Okay.
So, I wish I could remember that you can go to the Poor People's Campaign,
Okay.
which I think is an avenue for everyone who is poor and everyone who believes in justice to unite to change this economy, change this political situation that we've had here for the last 400 years.
Okay.
And it's regardless of denomination, regardless of color, regardless of
If I could ask a
background.
question there, so something that you had said struck me, and it was that poverty affects all of us.
It does.
In the city of Buffalo, it affects 1 or 2 groups of people in the majority, and that is so-called Black and Latino people.
No, it affects
I've heard and
all
seen.
of us.
I mean,
All
I'm
of
standing
us-
in an area
all of
right
us
now
are
that doesn't look
paying.
like it's hit by poverty.
All
very
of
much.
us are paying taxes for the repression of certain people in the community. Black, white, brown, yellow, Native American. We're all paying taxes for that. The police are the instrument of the economy to keep the status quo. We're paying for that. We're paying for violence. We don't want violence. Look, give peace a chance. So we're all paying for that. We're paying for the division that tries to create between us. When, if we're all truly created in the divine image of one God, we are all divine. We are all one people, and we allow the system to separate us and put us against one another, when we ought to be fighting for each other against the system which represses. If one person is repressed, everybody is repressed. So that's my response to we all pay for this.
Okay.
We all pay for the inequality in our world.
Right. Right. My name is Captain Azania.
Hi,
I'm the
Captain
captain of the
I'm
ISUPK. Your name is Howard?
Howard.
Howard.
Yep.
Nice to meet you, Howard.
Good to meet you.
I'm a historian. I study a little bit of history,
Yeah.
just a little bit, okay?
I'm
when
a
you
historian too.
Okay, so you might be able to
compare notes.
walk with me a little bit.
Okay.
Okay? When you brought up poverty,
Yeah.
and we were speaking about poverty, right? And you're saying poor whites. And then you brought up the police stations and the police department and the police being paid by the taxpayers to do nothing but to commit violence and crime.
No,
all right?
not to do nothing but commit violence and crime.
Okay.
The police protect the inequality that we have in this nation. I
Okay.
believe the original police departments were to control escaped slaves.
That's correct. That's exactly what I was going to bring out.
So we're going to.
But do you know the poor of white people during the time of slavery, they were the ones given those jobs as police. You know what I mean? So when he was speaking on us being separate rather than joining on with poor whites, because demographically and historically, poor whites tend to be more violent and hate and racist towards blacks and Hispanics. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, with the people who love the Confederate flag and the Confederate soldiers and the Ku Klux Klan. Those are people who tend to be poor compared to other Americans, white Americans in America. So what the brother was just speaking out on of us being separate.
I don't think I agree with that.
Okay.
I believe.
But you understand
that,
why he would say that if the police started based on the slave traders and those who kept fugitive slaves. That's how the police forces started here in America.
Yeah.
Those jobs.
Nobody tell you cry. You know why? Because I never saw you before. But you are a black man like me. And it's worth something.
My whole life was trying to find something to follow. Had loyalty, every man tried to borrow. Felt pain and a lot of sorrow. Got betrayed, so packed, I didn't even have my heart broke. Living confused, about to lose hope. Cops got me on the side of the road like a sideshow. Need an antidote before I croak. Now I'm setting fire to Rhythm Man Blues, for this guitar smoke. Rebel with no cause, trying to find direction. The world got me vexed. Picked up a bad liquor habit that's hereditary from oppression. Felt like my life was on fire, trying to find an exit. Now look, 10 G's plus a good wreck. Sometimes a follower is a soldier, trying to find a good shepherd. Plus when you in hell, how did you excel? With them the breath of life, I don't believe in fairy tale. Listen well to what I tell. No calling can cause pain. Something that a rebel knows very well. Can't you tell I was sent from